More details have been released as to why Molly Qerim abruptly quit ESPN. And when I say abruptly quit, I mean she left work, I think it was on Monday, and she never came.
We got to kick this off with the money, because at ESPN in 2025, nothing shakes the building harder than a contract stacked over $100 million. Stephen A. Smith, if you haven't been keeping count, ran his price tag so high, it's like the whole company started bending around him. $20 million a year, not just for yelling on First Take, but for slipping into Monday Night Football, showing up on NBA Countdown, and pretty much popping up anywhere. ESPN needs a quick ratings boost. He's the face plastered on the billboards, the voice echoing through the halls in Bristol, the machine that never stops. All that power, all that cash, and just as Stephen A. cements himself as ESPN's biggest star, his longtime co-host Molly Qerim hits the eject button out of nowhere. No warning, no slow goodbye. One day she's on your screen, the next she's gone like she was never there.
Oftentimes, when you have someone abruptly quit a job, they're not leaving on the best terms. Normally, it's polite to give your employer some kind of notice.
The first whispers came through gossip sites hinting she'd leave by year's end. But then, boom, an Instagram post in September straight from Qerim herself. She's closing her chapter after almost a decade on First Take. Effective immediately. No farewell tour, no sappy send-off, no countdown to her last day. Just, I'm done. One day she's in the chair, next day the seat's empty, and fans are stunned. Let's not forget, Qerim's not just some random face. She's been with ESPN for nearly 20 years, starting in 2006, grinding in digital, moving into live shows, then scooping up an Emmy on ESPN2, before stepping into the Lion's Den as First Take's host in 2015. And if Stephen A. is the gas pedal, Qerim was the brakes. She kept that show from blowing off the rails, reining in the chaos whenever debates went nuclear. She was the steady hand next to Stephen A.'s fire, the one holding the whole circus together. Officially, the story was she'd quietly finished the year, then transitioned to other things. That was the company line. But instead, she rips the plug out the wall with no notice. Viewers blindsided, producers scrambling to figure out who's sitting in that chair tomorrow. It's the type of exit that sparks whispers immediately. What really went down behind those ESPN doors? Then comes the damage control. Hours after Qerim's announcement, ESPN's president of content, Burke Magnus, is already out here spinning the story.
She was quitting right now. Both ESPN and Molly Qerim, they are trying to polish the... They're trying to make this look like an amicable divorce. And look, maybe that's true. Maybe that's true. Maybe they couldn't come to an agreement and they agreed to amicably part ways. I'm more interested in...
There's no controversy here. She just wants to do other things, he claims in interviews. He calls her an awesome person, insists ESPN even wanted to keep her in another role, and swears the timing caught executives off guard. According to him, simple, ordinary, nothing to see here. But come on, when has anything in TV ever been that simple? 10 years is a long run in TV, and sure, Magnus says Molly just wanted new challenges. According to him, she was already set to step down at the end of the year, contract done, bridge crossed. But here's the problem. The more Magnus swears it's nothing, the more the whole thing feels off. If this was truly business as usual, why did word leak days before the official announcement, catching even ESPN's top brass flat-footed? And why did Molly have to scramble together a quick Instagram post, basically forced to confirm she was out before she was ready? Magnus keeps repeating there's no other shoe about to drop. But let's be real. When the president of content is this desperate to shut down whispers, it makes people wonder, what are they really nervous about us finding out? Then comes the human drama. Stephen A. Smith opens the next First Take with what looks like a heartfelt tribute, calling Molly a friend, praising her for lifting the show, and saying flat out that he's sad to see her go.
Molly is a friend. Molly is a co-worker. Molly is somebody that I have leaned on many occasions in the past, as she has done when it comes to me. We've been partners on the show for the last 10 years.
On camera, it's gratitude and nostalgia, a performance polished just enough to tug at fans' emotions. But behind that, he looked blindsided like the rest of us, and yet by the same afternoon, Stephen A. flips the tone on Sirius XM. Suddenly, he's cagey. He says Molly abruptly resigned. His words, not hers. Then he drops this line. The details, quite frankly, are none of your business. But he slips in another piece, that there was a contract negotiation going on. ESPN didn't want to lose her, and she made the decision to walk. He keeps hammering that word abrupt over and over. Why emphasize that so much if it's just a normal contract situation? It didn't take long before people started poking holes in his story. Emmanuel Acho, a former ESPN guy, called him out directly. Don't tell us the details, then say you're not going to tell us the details. Fans noticed the same thing. Stephen A. reveals just enough to stir the pot, then slams the door shut when the questions get too close. That kind of vague half-truth doesn't look like confusion. It looks like spin.
Last night, she abruptly resigned as the host of the show. And to say that I'm quite sad about it is an understatement.
By now, speculation is running wild. Fans on X and Instagram are already piecing together their own theories. Why would Molly fight through negotiations only to bail with zero notice? And why is Stephen A., the guy whose face is literally on every ESPN property, working overtime to distance himself from what really went down, even as he's giving glowing tributes? It's like he wants credit for the loyalty, but none of the smoke. Meanwhile, behind the curtain, producers are scrambling. Auditions, guest hosts, a revolving door of personalities, all while ESPN rushes to pump out a press release about Malika Andrews' shiny new contract. And the timing? Too clean. Molly announces she's out that morning, and suddenly Malika's deal is front page news by lunch? That doesn't feel like coincidence. It feels like they had her replacement waiting in the wings the whole time. The timing feels way too perfect. Molly's own farewell post basically waves a red flag that there's more under the surface.
Let's remember, wasn't it just last week Stephen A. was on air bragging about the people he stood up for to get paid and how many, Cam, I did for Shannon Sharp and I did it for this person and that person. And when I look at the abrupt, I'm not coming into work tomorrow.
Yeah.
That also is like, maybe there's pointing a finger at Stephen A.
She writes, now that the news came out earlier than I intended and not in the way I hoped, just vague enough to stir even more questions. Her Instagram story thanks the fans, the show, and the network. But she ends with, stay tuned. That's not a goodbye, that's a cliffhanger. She knew exactly the storm she was about to set off, but still left out the one thing everyone wanted to know. Why did she really walk? Through the cracks, you can see the outlines of something bigger than a simple contract dispute. Reports claim ESPN was actually offering her new roles inside the company, yet she ditched the whole operation entirely. And the more ESPN execs keep pushing the clean break nothing to see line, the less believable it sounds, especially when Stephen A. Smith is standing right in the middle of it all, locked in his own tense negotiations for nearly $20 million a year. Think about it. The exact moment Stephen A.'s influence hits its peak, stretching across NFL, NBA, and every headline-grabbing event ESPN can throw at him, his co-host of almost a decade disappears overnight. She doesn't ease the transition, doesn't slide into a side role, doesn't even let them run a final week tribute. She just vanishes. And even Burke Magnus, the network's content boss, admits the timing blindsided people upstairs.
The other thing I thought, Steve, was when you pay Stephen A. Smith $20 million, that means, okay, well, whoever his co-host is, they're going to want an exorbitant amount of money. And so she may have been making $2.5, $3 million as the host. Well, when Stephen A. is sitting there making 20, well, maybe now she wants to make 10.
Then Stephen A. drops one last breadcrumb to make it even messier. Do I have an idea? Of course I do. Am I going to share it with you? No. That single line hit harder than any corporate statement ESPN put out. Suddenly, it's Stephen A., the man with the power, the smile, and all the leverage, dangling answers like bait but refusing to feed the public. He knows something and he's not saying it. Meanwhile, ESPN wasted no time playing their next move. Before Molly's seat even cooled, they blasted a headline. Malika Andrews, just 30 years old, signed to a fresh multi-year deal. To the public, it was painted as a celebration of rising talent, but insiders saw it differently, like a chess move. One high-profile woman out, another announced with fireworks, as if they could swap personalities like puzzle pieces. The whispers exploded immediately. Was Andrews being lined up to slide into Molly's chair on First Take? The optics couldn't be ignored. Stephen A's power ballooned, his assignments stacked higher than ever, and at the same time his longtime co-star was erased in a single day. The whole thing looked less like routine business and more like a shakeup designed to clear space for ESPN's biggest name, a chessboard in motion, pieces shifting around him and everyone else looking disposable.
Jason, I actually watched that whole video clip of Stephen A. Smith. I just thought it was funny. It ain't none of y'all business. It was a contract negotiation. Well, oh, so that was about the money. Thanks, Stephen. Thanks for cluing it. It's always about the money, though. It's like in boxing. Why didn't this fight happen? Easy. There wasn't enough.
Social media didn't buy the nothing to see here spin for 1 second. Fans pointed out how the timing of Malika's deal felt like corporate damage control, staged as smoothly as a halftime show. Instead of calming the storm, it made the whole thing look even more orchestrated. And it wasn't just fans raising their eyebrows. Industry vets jumped in too. Emmanuel Acho, who knows ESPN from the inside, didn't hold back on Mad Dog Sports Radio. He called Stephen A's act exactly what it looked like, staged. Don't tell us the details, then tell us you're not gonna tell us the details, Acho blasted. He even broke it down like game tape. Stephen A kept repeating Molly abruptly resigned, which is already a detail, before backtracking with, that's none of your business, and honestly, I don't know all the details. Acho's critique hit a nerve because he said what everyone else was thinking. Stephen A's strange performance wasn't about protecting Molly's privacy. It looked like he was protecting himself too. If there was more bubbling under the surface, Stephen A wanted to come out looking like the loyal one without letting a single ounce of blame stick to him. Because this wasn't just about Molly's sudden exit. It was about the question hanging over ESPN like a storm cloud.
Start with Molly Qerim. She, yesterday when we talked, we knew that she was leaving, but we didn't know she was leaving like immediately, which is an indication that, man, this thing's a bit more complicated than just they couldn't settle on the money. It just seems more seriously. She's off the show.
How much of this was fueled by Stephen A's ballooning power, his $20 million paycheck, and the leverage he now has over casting and content? His aura of invincibility didn't just lift him up, it started to weigh heavy on the people around him, especially his female colleagues. Even before Molly's shocking goodbye, social media had already clocked moments that painted a darker picture. The eating joke incident still lingers. On First Take, live on air, Stephen A cracked about Molly's habit of snacking during breaks, tossing out, you can ask Molly to do a lot of things, asking her to fast and not eat. That's gonna be a problem for her? Cameras caught Molly's face tighten instantly. Her clapback was sharp. Adult woman, proud of it, not a little girl. The moment landed like a gavel. It went viral within hours, with fans and critics blasting Stephen A for crossing a line. Some called it arrogance, others disrespect, but everyone agreed it wasn't just playful banter. It felt personal, and it showed how his power might have made him feel untouchable. For many, that awkward exchange wasn't just a slip, it was the tip of an iceberg, a glimpse at the daily friction Molly might have endured while working next to ESPN's most protected star. Rumors exploded. Was Molly quietly pushed out by Stephen A's swelling influence? Did his moods, his dominance on set, and the network's obsession with keeping him happy make her position harder to protect? Some pointed to a clear pattern. The bigger his reach got, from First Take to Monday Night Football to NBA coverage and even SportsCenter cameos, the more everyone else started to look disposable. Longtime fans started asking out loud, did Molly leave because she saw the writing on the wall? When your co-host is the highest paid, most shielded name in sports TV, even a decade of loyalty can vanish overnight.
When I heard that it was immediate, I was like, oh, she must already have a job lined up. Mm-hmm. And the job that she has lined up must be some sort of competitor to ESPN. And so that made me, is she going to Fox Sports?
But there's another layer, one quieter and far more human, that rarely makes headlines. Molly has been candid over the years about her battle with endometriosis. She's spoken about surgeries, flare-ups, and the brutal reality of living with chronic pain while showing up every single day on live television. To viewers who followed her story, this honesty made her feel real. Proof that behind the polished hosting was someone carrying a fight most of us never saw. The pace of First Take never slows down for personal health struggles. Headlines turn over by the hour, debates roar on, and cameras don't wait for anyone's pain. That Molly still managed to moderate, stay sharp, and keep two fiery personalities on track was itself a quiet act of resilience. Unlike Stephen A., whose battles play out in the press, Molly's hardest fights happened off stage, in hospital rooms, or in those early mornings before the makeup chair. This isn't to say her exit was because of her health, but it reframes it. Every negotiation, every clash, every demand from upstairs was stacked on top of a baseline of exhaustion and pain that fans rarely saw. Walking away then wasn't just a career pivot, it looked like a personal reset, a choice to finally reclaim her time and her health after years of putting ESPN, the audience, and even her co-host ahead of herself. That, in its own way, is powerful. The contrast is striking. Stephen A's empire only grows, bigger, louder, more untouchable with each new assignment. Meanwhile, Molly's exit reads as something braver, a refusal to let the chaos of live TV and the shadow of a superstar define her limits. In the swirl of rumors and finger-pointing, this might be the most overlooked but most human detail of all. Of course, ESPN brass did everything they could to douse the flames.
Whether she goes to FS1 or launches her own show on YouTube, I wish Molly Qerim nothing but the best. I don't want to see her fail, but at the same time, I don't see a path to success. It is hard to build an audience by yourself. It's hard to build and sustain an audience when it's just you.
Burke Magnus hammered away at the company line, saying they wanted Molly to stay, they offered her other roles, and in the end, it just came down to different visions. The official spin claimed respect, claimed support, and swore there was no other shoe about to drop. But outside those boardrooms, fans and pundits weren't buying it. If it was all so clean and simple, why did the story leak early? Why the scramble, the abrupt exit, the sudden replacements? The timing smelled too calculated, and that's why the whispers refused to die down. Why did Molly's own farewell hint at more to come, ending with that cryptic tease, "Stay tuned"? And why, for all Stephen A's on-air grief, did he never once address the viral eating joke backlash or the whispers about the tense dynamic behind the cameras? That silence left a vacuum, and we all know what happens when there's no answers. Speculation rushed in fast, with theories about power struggles, unspoken friction, and the quiet price of protecting one megastar at the cost of everyone else. And this storm hit while ESPN itself was standing at a crossroads. Sure, it's still the mothership of sports media, but in the age of nonstop scandals, cutthroat streaming battles, and audiences who smell spin from a mile away, even giants can slip.
A lot of times, some of these things happen, and it's just uncomfortable to see. The details, quite frankly, are none of y'all business, but it's not as if I know all the details. It was a contract negotiation that was going on. ESPN certainly did not want to lose her, but in the end, she made a decision.
From one angle, making Stephen A. the centerpiece look smart. He's the draw, he's the face, why not put him everywhere? But when Molly walked away, a different picture came into focus. The warning sign that when one voice grows too big to be checked, the cracks start splitting wide open. Fans watched her calm professionalism vanish overnight, replaced with a carousel of auditions, speculation, and ghost comparisons to the woman who anchored the chaos for nearly a decade. Executives could pump out press releases and pretend it was routine, but the timing of Malika Andrews' deal, the media blowback, and Stephen A's dodgy answers made it clear something deeper was brewing. And now, as ESPN barrels ahead, here's the messy truth. Stephen A. Smith is more powerful than ever. Nearly $20 million a year, his brand untouchable, while the bosses shuffle everyone else like cards in a deck. Whispers claim he even wants Molly back, or at least wants to shape how her story gets told. Meanwhile, fans and insiders are convinced she was boxed out by Stephen A's rising influence, by a culture that crowns stars at any cost, or simply by the exhaustion of fighting a system that never bends. So, what's next? The stage is set for a brand new era of First Take, but nobody knows if this is the birth of a dynasty or the slow collapse of a morning empire weighed down by ego, money, and unchecked power. The real question is, are we witnessing the rise of a sports media king or the unraveling of the throne he built? Sound off in the comments. Was Molly pushed out, or is this just ESPN business as usual? Whatever happens next, you can bet Stephen A's next move will be one for the headlines. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and drop your thoughts below. See you in the next one.